Lisa Monroe stepped out of her black luxury SUV holding a large birthday cake and several gift bags filled with blankets, medicine, and food supplies. The elderly residents gathered near the entrance of the old nursing home smiled politely, grateful that someone still remembered them. But before Lisa could walk inside, she noticed an old janitor kneeling beside a frail woman in a wheelchair. The man quietly removed his own sweater and wrapped it around the shivering woman, even though the cold rain had already soaked through his thin shirt. Lisa froze. Because the old man had a small crescent-shaped scar just beneath his chin. The exact same scar her missing father had. And what happened next would change both of their lives forever. The rain poured steadily over the cracked pavement as Lisa stood there unable to breathe. Her fingers tightened around the birthday cake box. No. It couldn't be. Her father had disappeared 23 years ago. 23 years. The police never found him. Her mother spent years crying herself to sleep until sickness eventually took her life too. Lisa had searched for answers her entire childhood. But eventually, life forced her to stop chasing ghosts. Now she was 32 years old. Successful. Respected. Owner of one of the largest real estate companies in the city. And yet, despite everything she had achieved, birthdays were the one day she always hated. Because birthdays reminded her of family. And family reminded her of loss. The old man slowly stood up, rubbing his aching back. His gray beard was uneven, his shoes were worn out, and his hands trembled from age and exhaustion. Still, before stepping away, he smiled warmly at the elderly woman. "There now," he whispered gently. "Better?" The woman nodded with tears in her eyes. "You always take care of everyone, Samuel," she said softly. Samuel. Lisa's heart pounded violently. Her father's name was Richard Monroe. Not Samuel. She swallowed hard, trying to calm herself. Coincidence. That's all it was. The nursing home director suddenly rushed outside holding an umbrella. "Miss Monroe," the woman exclaimed nervously. "We're so honored you came again this year." Lisa forced a smile. For the past 5 birthdays, instead of celebrating in expensive restaurants or traveling overseas like her wealthy friends, Lisa visited forgotten places instead. Homeless shelters. Children's hospitals. Old people's homes. Some people called it generosity. But the truth was darker than that. Lisa did it because she couldn't stand spending birthdays alone. And helping strangers distracted her from her own emptiness. As the director led her inside, Lisa glanced back one more time. The old janitor was gone. The nursing home smelled faintly of soup, medicine, and old books. The walls were faded, and several ceiling panels showed signs of water damage. Lisa noticed immediately. She had spent years in real estate development. She could spot neglect within seconds. "How long has this place been struggling financially?" she asked quietly. The director hesitated. "We're managing." Lisa stopped walking. "That bad?" The woman sighed heavily. "We lost 2 major donors last year. Half the staff left. Sometimes we barely have enough for medication." Lisa looked around as elderly residents smiled weakly from old wheelchairs. One woman was knitting with shaking hands. A man quietly stared out the window like he was waiting for someone who would never come. Another elderly resident carefully folded pieces of bread into napkins to save for later. Lisa felt her chest tighten. No human being deserved to spend their final years forgotten. Then she noticed something else. Despite the building's poor condition, everything was spotless. The floors gleamed. The furniture was repaired carefully instead of discarded. Fresh flowers sat on every table. Even the residents looked well cared for despite limited resources. "Who maintains all this?" Lisa asked. The director smiled faintly. "Samuel. The janitor. He does far more than cleaning. As if summoned by the conversation, Samuel appeared carrying a toolbox. The moment his eyes met Lisa's, something strange happened. The old man froze completely. His face lost color. And the toolbox slipped from his hands. Tools clattered loudly across the hallway floor. The entire room went silent. Samuel stared at Lisa as though he had seen a ghost. Then suddenly, without saying a word, he bent down quickly and gathered his tools with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," he muttered. And walked away. Lisa stood there stunned. That reaction wasn't normal. Not even close. "Does he know me?" she asked carefully. The director frowned. "I don't think so." But Lisa noticed the uncertainty in her voice. The birthday celebration began shortly afterward. Residents gathered around as Lisa handed out gifts and food packages. She smiled, laughed politely, and listened to stories she had heard 100 times before from lonely elderly people desperate for conversation. But her attention kept drifting. Searching. Looking for Samuel. Finally, she spotted him in the kitchen washing dishes alone. Lisa quietly excused herself and walked toward him. Up close, the resemblance hit even harder. The eyes. The scar. Even the way he moved his hands reminded her of childhood memories she thought she had forgotten. Samuel kept his back turned. "You don't have to wash dishes during the celebration," Lisa said gently. "I prefer working." His voice was rough but calm. Lisa stepped closer. "Have we met before?" The old man's hand stopped moving for just a second. Then continued. "No. You seemed surprised when you saw me." "I was distracted." Lisa studied him carefully. "You have family?" Samuel swallowed slowly. "Not anymore." Something in the way he answered shattered her heart a little. "Not anymore. Not never. Not none. Not anymore." Before Lisa could ask another question, one of the nurses rushed into the kitchen. "Samuel, Mr. Jenkins is having trouble breathing again." The old man immediately dropped everything and hurried away. Lisa followed instinctively. Inside one of the rooms, an elderly man gasped painfully for air while panicked staff scrambled around helplessly. Without hesitation, Samuel knelt beside him calmly. "Mr. Jenkins, look at me," he said softly. "Slow breaths. Like we practiced." The old man obeyed. Samuel adjusted his pillows carefully, rubbed his back gently, and spoke with quiet reassurance until the man's breathing stabilized. It was astonishing to watch. Not because of medical skill. But because of love. Real love. The kind people rarely showed anymore. Later that evening, after the celebration ended, Lisa stayed behind longer than usual. Most residents had gone to sleep. Rain still tapped softly against the windows. And Samuel sat alone in the courtyard repairing an old wheelchair beneath a dim light. Lisa walked toward him carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might need this." Samuel looked surprised. "You shouldn't trouble yourself. It's coffee, not surgery." For the first time, the old man smiled slightly. Lisa sat beside him. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Lisa finally asked quietly. "How did you end up here?" Samuel stared down at the broken wheelchair. "Life. That's not really an answer." A sad chuckle escaped him. "No. I suppose it isn't." Lisa waited patiently. Finally, Samuel spoke again. "I made mistakes a long time ago. Hurt people I loved. By the time I tried to fix things, it was too late." Lisa felt chills crawl across her skin. "Did they forgive you?" Samuel's eyes filled with pain. "I don't know." The honesty in his voice felt unbearable. Lisa found herself opening up too. "My father disappeared when I was 9. Samuel's hands froze. "We never knew if he abandoned us, or died, or what happened. My mother waited for years. The old man lowered his head silently. I used to hate him, Lisa admitted softly. Then I got older and realized, sometimes life destroys people in ways others can't understand. Samuel wiped his eyes quickly before she noticed. But she noticed anyway. You still miss him, he whispered. Every day. The courtyard fell silent again except for the sound of rain. Then Samuel quietly asked. What if he never stopped loving you? Lisa looked at him, confused by the emotion trembling in his voice. I'd want to know why he never came back. Samuel nodded slowly as though accepting punishment from the universe itself. At that exact moment, lightning flashed across the courtyard. And Lisa saw it clearly. A faded tattoo on Samuel's wrist. A tiny blue bird. Her breath stopped. When she was little, her father had the exact same tattoo. Because Lisa herself had drawn it on paper when she was 6 years old. And her father got it permanently tattooed to make her smile. No coincidence on earth could explain that. Lisa stared at the old man in absolute shock as tears slowly filled her eyes. But before she could speak, Samuel quietly stood up and whispered words that shattered her completely. You should go home, Lisa. He already knew who she was. Before we continue with this incredible journey, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Lisa stood frozen beneath the dim courtyard light. Her mind screamed for answers. Her heart pounded so violently she could barely hear the rain anymore. Samuel knew her name. Not Miss Monroe. Not ma'am. Lisa. The same way her father used to say it whenever she had nightmares as a child. Softly. Carefully. Like her name itself mattered. The old man avoided her eyes as he slowly picked up the repaired wheelchair. You're leaving already? Lisa whispered. Samuel nodded once. It's late. No, Lisa said shakily. You don't get to do that. He stopped walking. You don't get to look at me like that, say my name like that, and then walk away. Samuel's shoulders trembled beneath his thin shirt. For a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he turned slightly. And Lisa saw tears in his eyes. You should go home, he repeated quietly. Are you my father? The question shattered the silence like glass. Samuel closed his eyes. Lisa waited desperately for him to deny it. To say no. To tell her she was imagining things. But he couldn't. And somehow that hurt even more. When Samuel finally opened his eyes again, they were overflowing with guilt. Yes. Lisa staggered backward like she'd been hit. 23 years. 23 birthdays. 23 Christmas mornings waiting for a father who never came home. And now he was standing in front of her wearing torn shoes and janitor gloves inside a dying nursing home. Alive. The coffee cup slipped from Lisa's hand and shattered against the wet pavement. Why? She whispered. Samuel looked completely broken. I never stopped loving you. That's not an answer. Her voice echoed through the courtyard. Inside the building, lights flickered as nurses moved quietly through hallways unaware that an entire lifetime was unraveling outside. Lisa's chest rose and fell rapidly. My mother cried herself sick waiting for you. Samuel lowered his head. I know. You know. Lisa shouted. Then where were you? The old man leaned heavily against the wheelchair as though the weight of memory itself was crushing him. I was ashamed. Lisa laughed bitterly through tears. Ashamed enough to abandon your family? No, his voice cracked. Ashamed enough to believe you deserved better without me. That makes no sense. It does when you know what happened. Lisa stared at him trembling. Then Samuel finally spoke words he had buried for decades. I lost everything. The rain intensified around them. Samuel slowly sat on a bench as though his legs could no longer hold him. I worked construction back then, he began quietly. One accident changed everything. A steel beam collapsed at a site. 3 men died. Lisa's anger faltered slightly. I survived, but the company blamed me. Samuel swallowed hard. They needed someone responsible. I lost my job. Then came lawsuits. Debt. Threats. Lisa listened silently. At first I hid it from your mother. I thought I could fix everything before she found out. His eyes filled with shame. But problems grow in darkness. Samuel explained how loan sharks began harassing them after he borrowed money trying to keep the family afloat. One night, men followed him home. And when he saw them watching Lisa through the apartment window, he panicked. I thought if I disappeared, they'd stop targeting you. Lisa stared at him in disbelief. So you left us? I planned to come back. But you never did. Samuel nodded weakly. After I disappeared, I got attacked. Badly beaten. They stole everything. I nearly died. Lisa's breathing slowed. I woke up in another city with no identification, broken ribs, and memory problems. He gave a painful smile. Sounds convenient, doesn't it? Lisa wanted to stay angry. God, she wanted to. But something about the devastation in his face made it impossible to believe he was lying. It took years before my memory fully returned, Samuel continued. And by then, I was too ashamed to face you. You should have come anyway. I know. Tears streamed down Lisa's face now. You have any idea what that did to us? Samuel nodded slowly. Every single day. Silence settled between them again. Heavy. Painful. Real. Finally, Lisa asked the question buried deepest in her heart. Did you ever try to find me? Samuel reached slowly into his worn jacket pocket. From inside, he pulled out an old faded photograph. Lisa gasped. It was her school picture from 4th grade. The edges were worn from being handled countless times. I carried this every day, Samuel whispered. Then he pulled out another. And another. A newspaper clipping showing Lisa graduating college. A magazine article featuring her real estate company. A photo from a charity gala. Lisa stared at them speechless. You followed my life. Samuel nodded. From a distance. Why not come to me? Because by then, you had become extraordinary. His voice trembled. And I was, this. Lisa looked around the broken nursing home. At the old man sitting in soaked clothes. At the cracked bench beneath him. And suddenly something inside her shifted. Because despite everything, despite the years, despite the pain, her father had still spent his life helping abandoned people. Not drinking. Not gambling. Not becoming cruel. Helping. The same kindness she remembered as a little girl. The same kindness that made him give his own sweater away in the rain. Lisa sat beside him slowly. For the first time in 23 years. Father and daughter sat together again. Neither knowing how to bridge decades of pain. Then Samuel suddenly spoke. You shouldn't forgive me. Lisa wiped her tears. I don't even know if I can. That's fair. But I want to understand. Samuel looked stunned by those words. Most people expected punishment. Very few offered understanding. At that moment, the nursing home director appeared at the courtyard door looking worried. Samuel. Are you all right? Then she noticed Lisa crying. Her eyes widened. Oh no. Lisa stood slowly. You knew. The woman looked horrified. I promised him I'd never say anything. You knew my father was alive? Lisa, Samuel whispered. No, she snapped. Do you understand what this means? The director's eyes filled with tears. He watched you from afar for years. Every birthday he donated half his salary anonymously to children's charities because he said your mother taught you kindness. Lisa froze. What? The director nodded sadly. He talks about you constantly. He keeps every newspaper article about your success. Samuel looked embarrassed and deeply ashamed at the same time. Lisa suddenly remembered something. Every year, on her birthday, an anonymous donation always appeared at whichever charity she supported that year. Always the exact same amount. $500. She had spent years wondering who it was. Oh my God. Samuel looked away quietly. It wasn't much. Lisa covered her mouth as emotion overwhelmed her again. This broken old man had spent decades secretly celebrating her birthdays. Even while living with almost nothing himself. The realization cracked something open inside her heart. Not complete forgiveness. Not yet. But compassion. Real compassion. Suddenly one of the nurses rushed outside in panic. Samuel. Mrs. Carter fell again. Without hesitation, Samuel immediately stood despite his aching body and hurried inside. Lisa followed. Inside one of the rooms, an elderly woman lay frightened beside her bed. Samuel knelt beside her gently. Well now, he said warmly. You're giving us all a scare tonight. The woman grabbed his hand tightly. Don't leave me. I'm right here. Lisa watched in silence as her father carefully lifted the frightened woman with incredible tenderness. Not once complaining. Not once showing frustration. Just patience. Pure patience. And suddenly Lisa understood why everyone here loved him. Because even after life destroyed him, he still chose kindness. Later that night, Lisa remained at the nursing home long after everyone slept. She quietly walked through the dim hallways. Peeling paint. Broken heaters. Outdated medical equipment. A leaking ceiling bucket catching rainwater. Her chest tightened. This place was surviving on miracles. Then she noticed something on the bulletin board. A handwritten list titled, Things Samuel Fixed This Month. Wheelchairs. Boilers. Kitchen sink. Electrical wiring. Roof leak. Resident eyeglasses. Even handmade birthday cards for lonely residents. Lisa stared at the list for a long time. Her father had become invisible to the world. But inside this forgotten place, he mattered deeply. The director approached quietly. He refuses to take a day off, she whispered. Why? Because he says nobody else will care for them the same way. Lisa looked toward Samuel's small room at the end of the hallway. You let him live here? The woman nodded sadly. He insists on paying rent even though we barely charge him anything. Lisa slowly opened the door to his tiny room. And her heart shattered all over again. The room was barely larger than a storage closet. A narrow bed. A tiny desk. One lamp. Folded clothes stacked neatly. And on the wall, photos of her. Dozens of them. School photos. Newspaper clippings. Magazine covers. Even a picture from her first television interview. Every achievement of her life carefully preserved by the father she thought had abandoned her forever. Lisa sat on the edge of the bed and cried silently. Not because the pain disappeared, but because love had survived all those years after all. A few minutes later, Samuel appeared at the doorway. He looked nervous seeing her inside. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have thrown those away. Lisa slowly shook her head. No. Samuel looked down. I used to imagine what I'd say if I ever saw you again. Lisa looked at him through tears. What were you going to say? The old man's voice broke completely. I'm sorry I missed your life. Lisa couldn't hold back anymore. She stood up and wrapped her arms around him. And for the first time in 23 years, Samuel Monroe held his daughter again. Both of them crying quietly in the tiny room while rain continued falling outside the forgotten nursing home. The next morning, Lisa woke up in her luxury penthouse staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she hadn't slept alone emotionally. But peace didn't come with the reunion. Questions did. Pain did. Confusion did. She walked barefoot toward the massive windows overlooking the city skyline. Thousands of people moved below, chasing money, meetings, deadlines, and dreams. And somewhere among all those years, her father had survived quietly in the shadows. Alone. Lisa looked down at her phone. 7 missed calls from her assistant. 2 board meeting reminders. A dinner invitation from investors. Normally, she would have jumped straight into work mode. But today, none of it mattered. Because for the first time in 23 years, she had a father again. Even if she didn't fully know what to do with that truth. By noon, Lisa found herself driving back to the nursing home. This time without cameras. Without assistants. Without charity photographers documenting her generosity for social media. Just Lisa. As she entered the building, several elderly residents brightened immediately. She came back, one old woman whispered happily. Samuel looked up from fixing a radiator. For a second, panic crossed his face. As though he feared she had changed her mind about him overnight. Lisa held up a paper bag. I brought lunch. The old man stared at her speechlessly. Then smiled. A real smile this time. And somehow, seeing that smile healed something deep inside her. They sat together in the small courtyard eating sandwiches while soft sunlight finally broke through the clouds. At first conversation felt awkward. 2 decades of absence sat heavily between every sentence. But slowly, they began learning each other again. Samuel told her stories about her childhood she had forgotten. How she used to hide vegetables under the table. How she once cried for 3 hours after stepping on an ant because she thought she had ruined its family. Lisa laughed harder than she had in months. You're making that up. I swear I'm not. You definitely are. Samuel chuckled softly. And Lisa suddenly realized something heartbreaking. She had inherited his laugh. Later that afternoon, Lisa quietly followed him through his daily routine inside the nursing home. And what she witnessed stunned her. Samuel repaired broken beds. Read books aloud to blind residents. Fed an elderly man suffering from Parkinson's disease. Even danced slowly with a woman who kept forgetting her own name. But every single time, he treated them with dignity. Not pity. Dignity. Why do you work so hard here? Lisa finally asked. Samuel adjusted an old blanket over a sleeping resident. Because people disappear long before they die. Lisa frowned slightly. What do you mean? The old man looked around the room. When society stops seeing you, that's a different kind of death. His words stayed with her. That evening, Lisa called her assistant. Cancel my meetings for the week. There was silence. Excuse me. You heard me. But the Westbrook project can wait. Her assistant sounded completely shocked. Lisa Monroe never canceled work. Ever. But something more important needed her now. Over the next several days, father and daughter slowly rebuilt pieces of what had been broken. Lisa began bringing supplies to the nursing home personally. Fresh blankets. Better medicine. New heaters. And every single time, Samuel protested. You spend too much money. Lisa rolled her eyes. You repaired wheelchairs with duct tape. They still worked. You are impossible. But secretly, Samuel's eyes filled with emotion every time she helped the residents. Because kindness looked beautiful on her. Just like it had on her mother. One afternoon, Lisa arrived unexpectedly and heard raised voices coming from the director's office. "You can't shut this place down," the director cried. Lisa immediately stepped inside. A tall man in an expensive suit turned toward her impatiently. "And you are?" "Lisa Monroe." The man's expression instantly changed. "Recognition. Respect. We're discussing a legal matter." Lisa crossed her arms. "What legal matter?" The director looked devastated. "The building owner sold the property." Lisa's stomach dropped. "What?" The suited man adjusted his tie. "This facility has 30 days to vacate." The room fell silent. Samuel stood frozen near the doorway. "But where will they go?" Lisa asked sharply. The man shrugged coldly. "That's not my department." Lisa's anger flared. "These are elderly people, not furniture. The new owners are building luxury apartments." Samuel quietly stepped forward. "We understand." Lisa turned toward him in disbelief. "No, we do not understand." But Samuel's tired eyes told another story. A story of someone used to losing things. Too used to it. After the businessman left, panic spread throughout the nursing home. Residents whispered fearfully in hallways. Some cried openly. One elderly veteran sat trembling because he had nowhere else to go. Lisa watched the fear consume the building. And suddenly this stopped being charity. This became personal. That night, she stood alone in the empty courtyard staring at the worn-out building. Samuel approached quietly. "You don't have to save us." Lisa looked at him. "Yes. I do." The old man shook his head gently. "You already gave enough." "No," her voice hardened. "I lost 23 years with my father. I'm not losing him again because some rich developer wants another luxury tower." Samuel looked stunned. Tears quietly filled his eyes. Lisa pulled out her phone immediately. "Get me every document related to this property acquisition," she told her legal team. For the next 2 weeks, Lisa fought harder than she ever had in business. She discovered the nursing home had been deliberately neglected by investors hoping residents would leave voluntarily. Corrupt inspections. Unpaid maintenance approvals. Predatory contracts. And the deeper she dug, the angrier she became. Meanwhile, Samuel struggled emotionally watching Lisa sacrifice so much. One evening, he confronted her gently. "You're exhausting yourself." Lisa barely looked up from her paperwork. "I'm fine. You haven't slept properly in days. They're trying to throw elderly people into the street." Samuel sat quietly beside her. Then softly asked, "Are you helping them, or trying to heal yourself?" The question hit hard. Lisa finally looked at him. "What if it's both?" Samuel smiled sadly. "Then promise me something." "What?" "Don't destroy yourself carrying everyone." Lisa's eyes watered. Too late. She already had been for years. The legal battle intensified quickly. News outlets picked up the story. Local nursing home faces closure. Residents at risk of eviction. Public sympathy exploded online. And for the first time in decades, people began noticing the forgotten elderly residents. Donations started arriving. Volunteers appeared daily. Even doctors offered free services. The ripple effect of kindness had begun. But not everyone supported Lisa's involvement. At a high-profile business dinner, one investor confronted her directly. "You're risking millions for an old building." Lisa stayed calm. "I'm protecting human beings." "You're becoming emotional." "No," Lisa replied firmly. "I'm becoming human." Meanwhile, Samuel struggled with guilt. One night, Lisa found him packing his belongings quietly. Her heart dropped. "What are you doing?" "If I leave," Samuel whispered, "maybe you'll stop sacrificing everything for me." Lisa stared at him in disbelief. "You think this is only about you?" Samuel looked away silently. Lisa stepped closer. "You taught me something important." The old man looked confused. "That people deserve dignity," she continued. "Even when the world forgets them." Tears filled Samuel's eyes again. "You already changed this place long before I came here." Lisa gently unpacked his bag. "So no, you don't get to disappear again." Those words broke him completely. Samuel sat down heavily and cried openly for the first time in years. Not quiet tears. Real grief. Years of shame finally pouring out. "I'm sorry," he kept whispering. "I'm so sorry." Lisa knelt beside him and held his trembling hands. "I know." And for the first time. That answer was enough. A week later, the final court hearing arrived. Residents gathered anxiously inside the recreation room watching the news coverage. Some prayed quietly. Others prepared mentally for losing the only home they had left. Samuel sat silently beside Lisa. "You already gave them hope," he whispered. "That matters even if we lose." Lisa squeezed his hand. But deep down, she refused to lose. Then finally, her lawyer burst through the doors smiling. "We got it." The room exploded with confusion. The court blocked the eviction. And Miss Monroe just purchased the entire property. Silence. Then chaos. Residents cried. Nurses screamed joyfully. One elderly woman nearly fainted from happiness. Samuel stared at Lisa completely speechless. "You bought it?" Lisa smiled through tears. "Happy birthday to me." The residents surrounded her with hugs and sobs of gratitude. But Lisa only looked at one person. Her father. Samuel stood there unable to speak as emotion overwhelmed him completely. And then slowly, he whispered words Lisa had waited her entire life to hear. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." Lisa broke down crying instantly. Because after 23 years, home no longer felt empty anymore. Have you ever had to overcome obstacles to help someone you cared about? What challenges did you face? Share your experience below.